Yeah, when I get where I'm going, don't cry for me down here. I'm gonna walk with my granddaddy, and he'll match me step for step. And I'll tell him how I've missed him every minute since he left. And then I'll hug his neck. Yeah, when I get where I'm going, there'll be only happy tears. I will shed the sins and struggles I have carried all these years, and I'll leave my heart wide open. I will love and have no fear. Yeah, when I get where I'm going, don't cry for me down here. So much pain and so much darkness in this world we stumble through. All these questions I can't answer, and so much work to do. But when I get where I'm going, and I see my Maker's face, I'll stand forever in the light of His amazing grace. Yeah, when I get where I'm there'll be only happy tears. I will love and have no Yeah, when I get where I'm When I get where I'm going, on the far side of the sky, the first thing that I'm gonna do is spread my wings and fly. I'm gonna land beside a lion and run my fingers through his mane, or I might find out what it's like to ride a drop of rain. Yeah, when I get where I'm going, there'll be only happy tears. I will shed the sins and struggles I have carried all these years, and I'll leave my heart wide open. I will love and have no fear. Yeah, when I get where I'm going, don't cry for me down here. I'm gonna walk with my granddaddy, and he'll match me step for step. And I'll tell him how I've missed him every minute since he left. And then I'll hug his neck. Yeah, when I get where I'm going, there'll be only happy tears. I will shed the sins and struggles I have carried all these years, and I'll leave my heart wide open. I and I see my Maker's face, I'll stand forever in the light of His amazing grace. Yeah, when I get where I'm going.
Well, good morning, everyone. I want to thank you all for being here today to support the Nevitt family. As friends and family, you are extremely valuable to them, and especially on this day. My name is Bill Kearney. I'm one of the pastors here at Ceres Christian Church, and I've known Brian for, I don't know, a zillion years. His kids are raised up in our youth group. We've had some amazing times at camp, and if you would like, remind me to tell you about servant prayer-man Pastor Rob that Scott did when he was a kid, or at least ask him about it. We have some special times together, so it's special to be together today. Would you join me as we open the service with prayer? Heavenly Father, God, we thank you, Lord. We thank you for your presence here today. God, we come today just with extreme heartfelt grieving, yet joy at the same time, knowing that Sharon is with you in heaven today. God, allow us to just burn the memories of Sharon's in our hearts, to recall her contagious smile, the sound of her voice. God, allow us to share testimonies and stories, and as we hear God's word today, be encouraged by you. God, we just lift up this service to you today in the name of Jesus. Amen. Okay, we're going to start with Linda, I'm sorry.
Do I go up there?
Yeah.
Can I just talk right
You could talk right here. I got it.
I have a pretty good voice, I think.
There you go.
Okay, test, okay. I'm going to read a verse that was meaningful to me. You can shed tears that she is gone, or you can smile because she has lived. You can close your eyes and pray that she will come back, or you can open your eyes and see all that she has left us. Your heart can be empty because you can't see her, or you can be full of the life and the love that you both shared. March 31st will never be an ordinary day again for our family. We lost a very special person that day. Our mom, grandma, sister, aunt, and the days and weeks following have not been easy. There have been many tears, even when you don't expect it. But here we are together today, and the purpose of the gathering is not to mourn that Sharon has passed, but to celebrate that Sharon has lived. And it was a very full life indeed.
Thank you, Linda. You know, I didn't know Sharon well, but as I've been learning, seeing the pictures and hearing some stories, I feel like I missed something by not knowing Sharon. Sharon Erling entered the world on July 28, 1943 in Modesto, California, a child of Herman and Louis Kane. Sharon married Jim Nevitt after high school and became a homemaker and a bookkeeper for Jim's cabinet shop. Together, they raised 4 rambunctious kids during the tumultuous 1960s and 70s, while also volunteering in their schools, scouts, 4-H, and sports team. The whole family devoted much of their free time to Salvation Army Red Shield, helping kids in the community. For weekend trips and vacations, Sharon, Jim, and the kids often piled in the motorhome for camping trips to Don Pedro Lake, Mendocino, and fishing villages in Mexico, where they always guaranteed plenty of new adventures on both water and land. As the years went by, the greatest joy for Sharon was time spent with her 8 grandchildren, 11 great-grandchildren. They lovingly named her Grandma Horsey. I do remember Grandma Horsey after her care of horses. During her mid-40s, Sharon joined the Western-style equestrian circuit of horse cutting, a competition where a horse and rider work together before a panel of judges to demonstrate the horse's athleticism and the ability to handle cattle. After several years of competing, Sharon was proud to win the non-pro nationals cutting event. Sharon continued to make a difference in the world, even in her senior years, when it was providing a home for orphan animals or helping those down in their luck with a little grocery or gas money. Sharon passed away at her home on Friday, March 31st. At the age of 79, she's survived by her son, Brian Nevitt, daughter, Linda Nevitt Nolan. She is deeply missed by all the family, but they're comforted knowing she was a believer and now at peace with the Lord, and reunited with her husband, Jim, and 2 adult children, Doug and Tammy Nevitt, who passed before her. There is a reunion going on in heaven today. And I want to thank you all for attending. I really appreciate you taking the time to be here this morning. You know, we've come to celebrate the life of Sharon, and we don't come with any simple answers. Let's face it, this is tough. We're stunned, we're hurting, we're confused, we're struggling, and there's just so much that we don't understand. You know, it might be difficult to believe, but the Bible actually says it's good for us to be here today. In Ecclesiastes 7:2, God says this: "It's better to go to a house of mourning than a house of feasting, for death is the destiny of every person, and the living should take this to heart." So in other words, God says it's better for us to be at a funeral than at a party, or it's better to be at a cemetery than a football game. And I think there's at least 3 reasons for that. First, this is a time for us to celebrate the life that God gave to Sharon. We're sad, we're hurting during this time of loss, but we also want to remember the one and only Grandma Horsey, Sharon's uniqueness. And second, is a time for us to say goodbye to Sharon. As hard as it is, this service will help us begin the process of letting go. And third, it's a time for us to take a look at our own lives. We're all going to die someday. It's a great time to ask some questions like, am I ready to die? And so we're going to remember, we're going to say goodbye, and we're going to reflect on our own lives. You know, some of you searching for answers this morning, and I want you to know it's okay to ask those questions. It's natural to wonder, why did this have to happen? Or why did it have to happen in this manner? Why did it have to happen now? And how do we move on? And where is God when we experience a sudden loss? And what are we supposed to do? And how do we navigate through all this? You know, in Mark chapter 4, we find a familiar story about the sudden and Jesus, who's the sovereign of the sudden. You know, the Sea of Galilee is this beautiful body of water in the northern part of Israel. It's not large. It's probably more like a lake than what we would think of as a sea today. It's 13 miles in length and just under 8 miles at its widest point. It's surrounded by hills and steep cliffs. You know, it was a chief source of revenue for fishermen, and it was enjoyed for its just fantastic beauty. Jesus set up his ministry here. Many of the miracles and much of his ministry took place here, and he also called his disciples from this area. So one day, attempting to get a break from the constant demand of the crowds that had begun to follow him, Jesus took a boat and with some of his disciples and drifted off for some rest and relaxation. But suddenly, their quiet, calm day was disrupted by this violent storm. However, this was not unusual. You see, the Sea of Galilee is 680 feet below sea level. It's surrounded by hills that send cool air from the mountains rushing through the ravines that kind of serve as a giant wind tunnel that collides with the warm, moist air on the water. And the result can produce a very dramatic storm. So in that sudden storm, Jesus did something astonishing. And from that, we can learn some things that will help us during this difficult time. Now, first of all, we got to remember that the Son of God, Jesus Christ, is on the boat. That's no guarantee against the sudden. In this case, a sudden life-threatening storm. You know, it's been a mistaken notion of many that if a person is a faithful follower of Jesus, that he or she is protected from the troubles of life. You know, their children will be successful, and sickness will never come their way, and all your financial ventures will succeed, and disappointment will never knock at the door. You know, a quick look at the men and women who serve God in Scriptures will reveal this is just not true. Joseph went to prison. Job lost everything but his own life. Jeremiah was put in prison. Paul had an affliction that plagued him all his life. All the original disciples were martyred for their faith in Jesus except one, and he was an exiled prisoner. You see, Jesus never promised us a rose garden. He did, however, promise, I am with you, that he will be with us through those tough times. You know, it may be tough to be in a storm with Jesus, but I imagine being in one without him. You know, it often feels like when these sudden experiences of life grieve us, that God isn't doing anything. And you know, these experienced veteran fishermen were visibly frightened. Their lives were on the line, yet Jesus appeared to be sleeping in the boat in the worst storm ever. You know, in life, things come at us that we absolutely have no control over. Some things through the actions of other people, and some things in life are just never explained. Sometimes God seems to be silent when we long for a word from him. You know, Psalms 46:10 says, "Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. Be still and know that I am God." You see, Jesus' disciples were terribly frightened, and fear at times can easily replace faith. Jesus did hear their cries for help, and he sprang into action. Jesus simply spoke, and the wind ceased, the waves became instantly calm, and then he asked this penetrating question: "Why are you so afraid?" You see, the men were deeply afraid, and when fear comes, faith is removed. And we live in a world where there's much to cause fear. You know, there's a fear of terrorists or illness, fear of losing our jobs, fear of even being victimized by criminals. Think about what's gone on as a property. I guess we could even add the fear of no toilet paper at Walmart or no eggs at the grocery store. Fear can immobilize us just as it did the disciples in the boat. And when fear consumes us, we can activate our faith to overcome our fear. 2 Timothy 1:7 says, "For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and a sound mind." So when the sudden comes into our lives, Jesus is looking for us to look to him. The disciples had seen Jesus do amazing things in recent days, and they knew he had the power to heal the sick, cast out demons, but their faith trembled at this sudden, unexpected turn of events. Jesus calms the wind and the sea, and the disciples are still a bit dumbfounded, and Jesus asks, "Do you still have no faith?" You see, Jesus challenges us to look deep within and remember some things that can turn our pain and our grief and our questions and our uncertainties into the beginning of healing in the midst of this horrific event. And we've got to remember that it appears Jesus did not hear the howling storm. However, he did hear the cries of his disciples. Sudden storms also serve to turn us to Jesus. Now, we can be caught up in everything else and the busyness of life, that God is moved to the edges of our existence. And it doesn't happen quickly. It's actually very gradually over time. The joy of knowing and of serving just seems to evaporate from our lives. And then the sudden storm hits, and we're drawn back to God. You know, story tells another valuable truth, that storms don't last forever. You know, storm can brew in a matter of minutes. They send us fury of hail and rain and lightning and thunder, and then it's over. You know, I've seen this often during the monsoon season in the high desert of eastern Arizona. A huge storm seemingly comes out of nowhere, then it's gone. Okay? And so too, this will pass. The pain will linger. Yes, the pain will linger, but its intensity will be softened. And Jesus does something else in our storms. He will assist others to be blessed in the storms they're facing. You know, when Jesus' boat started out across the lake, there were also other boats on the water with him, and they became survivors too. Jesus calmed the storm, and everyone on the sea benefited. You know, people watch how we deal with crises. You know, is God real in our lives? Is the faith we practice or sing about, pray about, and share with others big enough to handle this blow? And finally, storms remind us that Jesus is in control. The disciples were overwhelmed by what they had seen. They had a new fear, but it was a reverent fear. They had seen Jesus with a word rebuke the winds and the waves, and they were reminded that Jesus is in control when everything else seems out of control. Sharon was not planning to die when she did. And none of us know what will happen to us either. Our lives are so very fragile. Proverbs 27:1 says, "Do not boast about tomorrow, for you do not know what a day may bring." You know, this passage gives us two very significant reasons why we should never presume upon the future. Life is unpredictable. We don't know what will happen today, much less next week or next year. The truth is, no one can predict the future. And life is brief. The Bible says our lives are like a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. Our lives are like a mist in the grand scheme of things. So life is way too unpredictable and way too brief to live our lives without God at the center. And we count our lives in years, but in Psalms 90:12 it says to number our days. The truth of the matter is that all of us are just one heartbeat away from eternity. In Samuel 23, David said, "Yet as surely as the Lord lives and as you live, there's only one step between me and death." So I want to encourage you today to give your life to Jesus. Don't wait another day. In September of 2020, we lost our 4-month-old great-grandson to SIDS. His name was Hudson. And prior to his death, I thought I understood grieving, but I realized with the loss of our grandson that I had no idea what grieving was. There is a depth of grieving and a sudden loss of a loved one that is difficult to describe. The days and weeks following were undoubtedly the most difficult days of my life. But God's love, His faithfulness, His provision, His strength, His mercy, and His grace got me through. And God will do the same for you as well as you release your hurts to Him. You know, Romans 8:35 says, "Who shall separate us from the love of Christ? Shall trouble or hardships, persecution or famine, nakedness or danger or sword?" And then he continues in 37, "No, in all these things we are more than conquerors through Him who loved us." And then verse 38, one of my favorite verses, says, "For I am convinced that neither death, nor life, nor angels, nor demons, nor the present, nor the future, nor any powers, neither height nor depth, or anything else in all of creation will be able to separate us from the love of God that is in Christ Jesus our Lord." See, nothing can separate us from the love of God, not death, not life. And I am confident today that Sharon is with the Lord in heaven today. Nothing can separate us from God's love. You know, with God's strength, you will get through this, and God will use you to help others in the future. And my heart aches with you here today, and I just want you to know that pastors and the staff here at Ceres Christian Church will be here for you in the days, the weeks, the months ahead. And I want you to feel free to reach out to any one of us at any time. It's going to be a difficult road ahead, and again, I'm thankful for all of you here today. Thankful for having the friends and family to support, and I know that God will walk with you through this. So thank you for allowing me to share this morning. And what are we doing next? So now are you going to share first? Okay. I couldn't see either.
All right. First of all, thank you for coming. Mama be joyed. See everybody here. I want to share my childhood growing up with my mother, who was awesome. And I'm sure I'm just partial, but that's who I am. I'm partial. when it comes to my parents. And probably my farthest back memory as a child growing up in the household was we lived on Dora over off of Yosemite Avenue. And my dad had bought my mom this Sansui stereo system with a turntable. And yeah, I'm dating myself with the albums. But she used to love to play that thing. So every morning she would get up before we did, and she'd drop the needle. And it was kind of like a grab bag. We never knew what we were going to hear that morning. It was either going to be Johnny Mathis, Tom Jones, I'm trying to think, Wayne Newton, or every once in a while we got a surprise and we got to wake up to Led Zeppelin 4, which was pretty cool. And I didn't know how cool my mom was at the time until I got older in high school, and it's like, oh man, Led Zeppelin 4, we got to listen to that years ago. So yeah, that was probably my fondest memory, farthest back. But my mom had a love for us. I can remember every year getting ready for school. My parents had a cabinet shop, and they were struggling, but you know, Dad made ends meet, and we were never deprived as kids. My dad's family was, we were first before anybody. But we'd always go to Ceres downtown, again dating myself, and we'd get a pair of jeans. But my mom wanted us to have a nice shirt, so she would take the time to sew us these really cool shirts. She would go down to Dunlap's, get the material, make the shirts, and we go to school and we were the cool kids because we had a shirt that nobody else had. And so it was awesome because we always had a different color shirt, different style shirt, and it was pretty neat. And we didn't know any different, and but that was her way of making sure that we felt special and that we were had new clothes for school. And Bill had mentioned in the eulogy about going to Mexico. Every time we'd go down to Mexico, she would sew some type of, I guess you call it a poncho. They were a terry cloth, and they had, she made them so we wouldn't get sunburned. And we always thought that, you know, it's like, oh, we're not going to wear that. And then we get down there and it was hot, and there's no place to get out of the sun. And so they were pretty cool, and they were neat. And so she always made sure she was protecting us, taking care of us. And then as later on in life, as we got older, me and my brother, I can remember, were saints all through school. You know, we never did anything bad, ever. And here again, Mama Bear protection would come out. I remember a couple times where, you know, my dad's philosophy was, I don't want you ever starting a fight. You don't disrespect your teachers, anybody, but we'll defend you. And I remember my dad was out of town, and my brother got in a fight in school, and for some reason, I don't know why I was there, but I was outside the counselor's office, and my brother and my mom were in the office, and all of a sudden my brother comes out, and he looks at me, and he's got this funny look on his face, and I go, "Is that bad, huh?" And he goes, "Mom asked me to leave." And I said, "Really?" And he goes, "Yeah, I think it's going to get ugly." And it did. And I remember my mom standing up, and I'm looking through the big windows, and the counselor's desk is there, and my mom's just pointing at the desk, and she's just pounding her finger on the desk. And the counselor's just standing there, and his eyes are about this big. And then she comes out, and she goes, "Okay, let's go." And it was like, then it was over. And so she was the mama bear when it came to her cubs. She wasn't going to let anybody rule over them, but she also ruled with a fist, an iron fist when it come to discipline. And I remember I was probably, I don't know, maybe a junior, maybe a sophomore, junior in high school. And I remember standing in the kitchen, And she, I forget what it was about, but she said, I need to talk to you about this. And I said, what? I said, I didn't do anything. You need to stand here and talk to me about this. So me being the smart aleck that I am, I picked her up and I set her on the counter. And that just infuriated her. And I remember her just beating on me. Don't you do that. You put me down like, Jim? And I was like, uh-oh. I did a no-no. I knew I was in trouble. And that actually turned out pretty good for us. But it was comical. And I remember later on in life her telling people, yeah, I remember the time Brian picked me up and set me on the counter and said, okay, Mom, let's talk. And I just, that was always a real memorable moment that stuck out. And then as time got on in life, I'd gotten married, my first wife, for her passing. We were sitting at a restaurant. It was me and my dad and my wife, Natalie, and my mom. And I'm not sure if anybody else was there, but I remember me and Natalie had gotten kind of a little discussion and kind of not an argument, but we disagreed. And I'll never forget, my mom just turns and she looks at me and she goes, well, I'm going to tell you something. If anything ever happens between the two of you, you're out of the family. And I go, what? I'm blood. She goes, sorry, you're out of the family. And so I respected her for that because I knew she could kick me out of the family. But, and then later on, when I had remarried, I remember her coming up to me and saying, I'm sure glad you met somebody that really loves my grandkids. She goes, because that was my concern, that you wouldn't meet somebody that would ever respect my grandkids the way I respect them. And that meant a lot to me because I knew she was happy. And I can tell you through all this, my wife Jody has been awesome. Been there for me to, do all the stuff that has to go on with life. But kind of regress back. Was talking about Mexico. I remember one year we were down in Guaymas, and they had the beach. Excuse me. They had the beach, and they we would go swim on the beach and everything, come back, and the campsites, it was a government campsite, and so they were set up, and everybody kind of backed in, and right where our camper was, we had a faucet, and so we'd always hose off the salt water at the end of the swim, and I remember standing there, and my mom just said, stop. I go, what? She goes, don't move. And I'm thinking, okay, what? I'm looking around, she goes, don't move. And I see her take her flip-flop off, and I'm thinking she's going to spank me, right? I was like, what did I do? All of a sudden, she rears back, and I had a scorpion that had crawled up on my leg, and she just rears back and knocks that thing. She missed me, but she got the scorpion. And I remember going over and just beating on it, and so she was always looking out for us, and she was just great about that. And then as time went on, Dad passed 2008, and one of the things he asked me to do was, he said, do me a favor, take care of the ranch for your mom, make sure she can stay here as long as she can. And the other thing is, don't let your brother move into the house. Well, I got one of them right. I took care of the ranch. And so every once in a while, she would take and she'd call me. Do we need to be irrigating? Yeah, it's coming up. Okay, just checking on it. And I think this kind of kept her in the loop, and it gave her a way of, being busy and not being busy. And the day came when Mom was getting the mail and drove across the street, pulled out in front of a young gentleman in a car and run him off the road, and he went through our pasture fence, and I had to take her license away, or her car away, and I couldn't insure her no more. And I think that was probably the hardest thing I ever to do as a child to a parent, was make that decision. But she was mad at me for a little while, and then she got over it. But after that, I think she that kind of took away her independence. And I remember her telling me, well, just give me my pink slip and just give me the insurance company name, and I'll go get my own insurance. I was okay, and she never did. But I was this last harvest. We were Jeff had come out to shake the trees, and she used to always she had cataract surgery, so she would sit in the house, and they told her to wear the cataract glasses for a little while. Well, then me and Jody would go out to check on her, and she'd have these glasses on, and she'd tell Jody, it's just so dark in this house. And it's like, she'd go, Sharon, you're not supposed to wear these in the house, just when you go outside. Oh, no, it hurts my eyes. I can't see. If I don't have these on, I can't see anything. She goes, I can't even see out to the back of the field. And she said, well, take them off. Maybe you can see. She goes, no, it hurts my eyes to see the light. So this last year we harvested, and Jeff Vargas was standing in the front yard, and I said, hey, I got to tell you a story. I said, because Jeff would always call me and say, how's Mom doing and stuff. And I said, she tells me she can't see. But I said, when you were out there shaking the trees, she told me, man, you should have seen the almonds coming off those trees. She goes, it's incredible. I go, wait a minute. 1 minute ago, you're telling me you can't see, and next minute, you're telling me how many almonds fell off the tree. So my mom had a way. She was sly. As she got older in life, she was sly about what she would say and how she would say things. And every once in a while, she'd get caught. But she was good about it. But, yeah, a friend of mine told me, because when I lost Dad, it was hard, but still had Mom. And then when Mom passed, it was just like the book closed. And a good friend of mine, Craig, said, he goes, I know how you feel. When I lost my mom, it was a comma in life. He said, when I lost my dad, it was a period. And I know exactly how he feels. There's that moment where you don't get to go back on things and make changes. It's an end. To me, it was an end of an era. But I can honestly say I have such joy having my mother in my life. I'm thankful that she brought me into this world. Raised me to be a good person. Always taught me good values, along with my father. I was always concerned. And I know that for every tragedy, there's a blessing. And probably one of the blessings I would say is to all the neighbors in the country. The farming community is one that's incredible. When somebody passes, the love is just, it's like my church family. The love is incredible. And people that live in cities don't understand that. They don't have that feeling of, when something happens, the community comes together, the farming community comes together. And I'm just thankful, and I thank everybody. I don't want to individually name people because I would leave somebody out, but you know who you are. And I just thank you for being there for me and my family and helping any way, offering what you do. And the same as my church family. It's been a blessing. To be just surrounded by love in the church, in the community, has been awesome. And I thank you for that. But the one blessing I was going to say is that now you won't have to worry about my mom calling you and telling you, oh, by the way, I seen a car go down through the field, because she would call everybody. She goes, oh, yeah, I called the neighbors, and I told them all that I seen a car, and I said, well, Mom, was it in our field? Well, I really don't know, but I seen it going down, and I'm thinking, you can't just call everybody and harass them constantly for and let them know that a car come down the road. She goes, yeah, but I really worry. I worry about my neighbors. And so she did. She probably at times she was probably a pain, but she meant well. And she definitely, her wish, I can remember standing outside the house when the fire was going, and her wish prior to her passing is I want to be in my home, I want to die in my home, and I want to die with my animals. And that wasn't my wish, but she got her wish. And I think that as bad as the situation was, she passed because of her animals. She was trying to recover her dog, and so she was at peace with how she passed. That's the way she wanted to go. She wanted to be at her home. We had talked to her about selling the place, and she just said, no, I don't want to leave. And so we didn't push the issue. But I can honestly say the last words I spoke to my mom, because we were supposed to go down to her banks the next day, was she called and said, hey, we still going down Friday to go to the bank? And I said, yeah, we're still going. She goes, okay. And she'd always say, I love you. And I said, love you too. And so that was, to me, that put my heart at peace, because I got to tell her I loved her, was my last words. And I would say, if you have a family member that, sometimes people are uncomfortable saying I love you, take that time to say that, because it may be the last time. And you don't want to miss that opportunity. That one person that, reaches out to you, give them that hug that they need. I had a blessing this last week, a true blessing out of the tragedy, a true blessing with all I've been dealing with. I had a true blessing, and that individual knows who he is, and I'm deeply moved by his passion and his comments, and love him to death. And I'm glad that with the tragedy that has happened, we were able to come back together and give each other a big hug this morning and tell each other we loved him, because it really meant a lot to me. So take that time to tell that loved one that you love them. Don't go to bed angry. It's not worth it, because that tomorrow may never come. So I just, again, thank you all for coming. And I hope that my mom had touched your life in some way. Hopefully not bad, but yeah, she was always, she loved everybody in the community, and she definitely will be missed, but she wouldn't want anybody to be sad. She was always upbeat and spirited, so let's try to keep a smile on her face and remember that she's in a better place. And the only thing I can think of is when she got to heaven, my dad probably looked over and said, oh man, here we go again. So yes, I could just see it. She probably, first words when she got there was, Jim? But yeah, she loved my dad, and she used to talk often about missing him. So thank you again for coming. I appreciate it.
Well, those who know me realize that Brian and I are cut from the same cloth. We're both very chatty. But he thinks better on his feet than I do. And so I'm going to read my little blurb, and just otherwise I might forget some words. And so when I thought about when I do attend services, one of my favorite part is getting to know my loved one. There's so many details that come out, and I'm thinking, why don't we do this before people die? So we have a chance to ask questions or whatever, but it's not the way. But anyway, I'm going to share something about my childhood that some of you may or may not know, but it has been part of my foundation. From my earliest memory as a little girl, Mom was the one who tucked me in at night. She was the one who sewed me cute 60s flower-powered dresses and became my Brownie Girl Scout leader. Mom was the one who would pack my Jetsons character tin lunchbox for school. And of course, she was the one to bandage up all the big and little boo-boos I had, because I was a pretty accident-prone kid. I was just like most other kids at school, with a father and a mother. And at the time, I was the big sister to two little brothers. I remember one night when I was about 8 years old, Mom said, "Let's watch a movie together." I was a night owl, just like she was, so it was always fun to stay up a bit later to watch TV with Mom. But when the movie ended, she started asking questions that I didn't really want to answer. My mind went numb hearing the words. That night, I learned that Mom was not the one who gave birth to me. Turns out that I was something of a little bonus wedding gift when she married my dad, because my birth mother was ill and could not take care of me. Right around the time they got married, I was going through the terrible twos. So imagine how fun that was. I'm sure it was difficult for her to deliver this news to me, but she did her best, just as she had for all the years she filled the role as my mother. I remember telling kids at school about my other mother. I thought it was a great thing. And this was not well accepted at the time, especially with 8-year-olds. My classmates thought I was some kind of freak having two mothers. It caused a commotion in the classroom, and once again, it was Mom who came to my rescue, helping to soothe my hurt feelings and confusion. Shortly after that, my little sister was born, and once again, I felt I had my place in the family as the big sister. But then came the teen years. I'm guessing we both thought those were the hardest between us. I was a spirited teen with ideas of my own. They weren't always the ideas she agreed with. I also had major responsibilities to do the cooking and cleaning for a household of 6, because Mom was suffering from headaches almost daily. But she did eventually get better, and somehow we got through the teen years and the college years, and little did I know that the best was yet to come. Once I was out on my own, I got to be friends with Mom and Dad, and so did my husband, Dave. We even took weekend trips together on occasion, and we had a lot of fun. They were wonderful grandparents to our kids, driving over to Morgan Hill for all of those musical theater programs and even some sports events. It was very hard to lose Dad in 2008, and now we've lost Mom. My brother said it better, but I just wanted to keep it short. About a month before Mom passed away, she called me one evening and left a voicemail. And let me tell you, my phone is full of her voicemails, and I'm deleting everything but I cannot delete her voicemails. When she didn't catch me in person, she left me details about her day, and I have 4 years of, I never could let any of them go. I don't know why, but I haven't, and I'm gonna have a hard time with this. Anyway, about a month before Mom passed away, she called me one evening and left a voicemail, which she often did when I couldn't answer. When I listened, she said, "Linda, this is your mama." It's been a long time since she called herself that. I mean, she's been Mom. But anyway, it took me back to that vulnerable little girl again, and I can say that that has been my entire month. I have relived my childhood. I've relived so many details, and I don't know that it's a blessing, but I think it has made me understand myself better, having this loss, than I ever knew. And I'm very grateful that she was the person who could fill that role as my mother. And people call her my stepmom, but she was mom. So I thank her for that.
All right, guys. I'm not going to stand up there because I'll probably fall. But I promised her I'd also talk at her service because that was one thing she made me promise to do. So I think for the last almost a little over 3 years, I got to spend every day with her. You know, day in and day out, we did everything together, between braiding her hair to giving her multicolored fingernails to trying out a mohawk. You know, she wanted her hair purple at once, so we put purple dye in it, and then we washed it out because she hated it. But she would, we always did things together, and it was great. It was so much fun. And, if I'm not sure if any of you know me, I'm sure a lot of you do, but I'm Nikki. I'm Brian's daughter. And you guys have probably seen or heard my kids, because they're kids. They talk a lot. Sorry, guys. But she always told me, you have to talk at my service, but keep it short and sweet so nobody falls asleep on me. And I said, okay, I'll do my best, And I think, as growing up, it was always the fun part. I got to go to Grandma Horsey's house, ride the horses. I had chores. I took care of those horses just as much as me and anybody else did. My brother and I, it's what we grew up. We knew we took care of them if we wanted to touch them, play with them. They're just big dogs. That's what she called them. They were big dogs. And, she, I think out of everything I got from her, I knew I had more of a respect for the things she did, because it's not easy. Horses aren't easy. Taking care of animals aren't easy. And now I have, 5 tiny animals of my own on top of my other, real pets. But she loved them, and they loved her equally. And I know there's going to be some photos of her and them up there. And I think the last couple of years I had the most fun, because her and my 2-year-old were, they were best friends. They did everything together. They talked about what they were going to wear that day. They changed each other's shoes. She would tie her shoes for her sometimes. We'd put her in her walker, which had a seat in it, and Ainsley would always tell her, okay, Grandma, turn around and I'll push you. So she would sit backwards on the seat, and we'd pull the bar back around her, almost as if it's just a little ride. And Ainsley'd stand behind the walker and push her. And we got to where we went to a park, and we were playing at the park. She goes, I'm taking Grandma on a walk. So her and Grandma went on a walk, and then when I started paying attention more, they were going up and down the curb on a walker. And then I looked at her, I said, Grandma, what are you doing? She says, well, I'm having the time of my life. I said, okay, I'm here for it. If that's what you want to do, great. But after that, we went home, and I made her lunch, and we sat there and we talked, and she said, I need you to understand that when I die, I want my boots, and I want certain boots. And she described them, and I was lucky enough to find them. And she said, those are my favorite. Red was my favorite. I love those ones. Bury me in them, but if you don't, make sure they're close. And, I like flowers, but I don't really like red ones, and I want this and I want that. And some of her song choices were a little questionable, but she always had a good reason for it. I mean, she really wanted you guys to hear, Frank Sinatra, New York, New York. And I don't know why, but she wanted you to know that she was going to New York, apparently. So, but I know she, would definitely, if she'd seen you guys or talked to you, she would want you to know that, she will see you when she sees the whites of your eyes. So, all the time. But thank you. Anybody else? All right. Come on, Scotty.
Thank you again, everybody, for coming out and attending the service. I'm Scotty, Nikki's brother. I spend a lot of time with Grandma Horsey. I don't want to say that I coined the term Grandma Horsey and stuff, but that's how I remember her. She always had horses. I swear I could probably ride a horse before I actually rode a bike. I'd go up with her when she would raise the horses, do the cutting and such. And I always remember we'd go to McDonald's. We'd get a salad. We'd split the salad. She'd have, and then we'd always get a hamburger for the dogs. Couldn't had just a plain hamburger for the dogs and such. But it's my grandma that gave me the love of animals. And while it pains me that she did pass going and saving her dog, I know that that's grandma. That's what grandma would have done, and I can't fault her for that. It sucks that she did succumb to the smoke and such, but I know deep down in my heart that she was going to do it no matter what. That's just who she was. We always knew Grandma Horsey was, if there was any stray animals, if you make it to a Nevitt home, you're set for life. And we were luckily able, one of her dogs did make it out of the whole situation, and we were able to rehome them. But I just know that she always cared for all of her grandkids, her great-grandkids, any animal that came through there, any random person she'd see on the street too. She would give money. It's like, Grandma, you don't really have that. Oh, they need it more than I do. And it's that unconditional love that she had for others that I will take away from the whole situation. And I miss her so much. But I know she's in a better place now. She's not suffering. She's not hurting anymore. And yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm bugging him, yeah. But I just, there's so many memories. I could sit up here all day, and I don't want to bore you with them, but multiple times going out, helping her in the orchard. Every time I went out to irrigate, she's, well, how long did we do it this time? Was it 3? And she, like my dad said, she would keep track of it. There was some way for her to keep control on things, even when she didn't have to worry about it. I remember, one night we were out, and I won't say exactly what I was doing because it wasn't really appropriate, but I was out there with my grandma, so I couldn't be doing that much wrong, and all she could say was, if you think this is bad, you should have seen what I did when I was a kid. Oh, okay. That was more information than I needed to know from my grandma and stuff, but then I knew, she was cool. She was somebody to get along with, and I'll always miss my grandma. So.
Okay, if not, we have a video for you now.
imagine what it will be like when I walk by your side. I can only imagine what my eyes will see when your face is before me. I can only imagine. Surrounded by your glory, what will my heart feel? Will I dance for you, Jesus? Or in awe of you be still? Will I stand in your presence? Or to my knees will I fall? Will I sing hallelujah? Will I be able to speak at all? I can only imagine. I can only imagine. I can only imagine when that day comes and I find myself standing in the sun. I can only imagine when all I would do is forever, forever worship you. I can only imagine, yeah. I can only imagine. Surrounded by your glory, what will my heart feel? Will I dance for you, Jesus? Or in awe of you be still? Will I stand in your presence? Or to my knees will I fall? Will I sing hallelujah? Will I be able to speak at all? I can only imagine. Yeah, I can only imagine. Surrounded by your glory, what will my heart feel? Will I dance for you, Jesus? Or in awe of you be still? Will I stand in your presence? Or to my knees will I fall? Will I sing hallelujah? Will I be able to speak at all? I can only imagine. Yeah, I can only imagine. I can only imagine. Yeah, I can only imagine. I can only imagine. I can only imagine. I can only imagine when all I would do is forever, forever worship you. I can only imagine.
I come to the garden alone while the dew is still on the roses, and the voice I hear falling on my ear, the song of God discloses, and He walks with me, and He talks with me, and He tells me I am His own. He speaks, and the sound of his voice is so sweet. The birds hush their singing, and the melody that he gave to me within my heart is ringing, and he walks with me, and he talks with me, and he tells me I am his own, and the joy we share as we tarry there, none other has ever
When I am down and oh my soul so weary, when troubles come and my heart burdened be, then I am still and wait here in the silence until you come and sit a while with me. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. I am strong when I am on your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can be. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. I am strong when I am on your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can be. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up gathered round your grave to grieve. Wish I could see angels' faces when they hear your sweet voice sing. So go rest high on that mountain, son. Your work on earth is done. Go to heaven a shout, love for the Father and the Son.
Linda, where are you? Oh, you're here. Yeah.
Did I push the button? I can't remember. Okay, it's already ready. As you can imagine, it was very cathartic for us to work on those photos, and especially because some of those younger ones were recovered from a cedar chest, and this was a learning experience that in this world things burn, but cedar preserves photos, and I'm ready to go out and buy a cedar chest right now because and so like we ended up having a lot of photos, and there were millions of others because again, our mom lived a very full, blessed life, and we're so glad that we could be a part of it, and so could you. I just want to share a verse that, so the week that this all happened, I was really torn because, with our extent, I couldn't call everybody, and so, but it just seems wrong to post something about this on Facebook. But yet Facebook has become our channel of communication. And so I did post, and I love the love that I felt from it. But a friend of mine, she lost her mom that week, and she was in Sweden, and she took the time to send me this little verse as she was experiencing the loss of her own mom, and it was beautiful. It literally made me have the ugly cry of the week. I mean, I just dumped everything, and I probably won't cry because I've already cried enough, but we'll see. We'll see. The verse is called "Your Mother is Always With You," and she's the whisper of the leaves as you walk down the street. She's the smell of certain foods you remember, flowers you pick, the fragrance of life itself. She's the cool hand on your brow when you're not feeling well. She's your breath in the air on a cold winter's day. She is the sound of the rain that lulls you to sleep, the colors of a rainbow. She is Christmas morning. Your mother lives inside your laughter. She's the place you came from, your first home. She's the map you follow with every step you take. She's your first love, your first friend, even your first enemy. But nothing on earth can separate you. Not time, not space, not even death.
Again, I want to thank all of you for being here today. Immediate following the service here, we'll have a meal out in our youth center, just right behind the buildings. You can go out these two doors, down the hallway, and just across the parking lot. We're going to close with the Lord's Prayer today. In fact, if you, yes. Oh, okay, did we forget something? The first mistake I've made this year. Sure. Okay, let's do that.
Lo, the angel of the Lord came upon them, and the glory of the Lord shone round about them.
The morning light was soft and low. The clouds had left an early snow. A peaceful sound was calling low. It's time to go. Then God reached out his tender hand and gently pulled her home with him, and brushed away the sorrow from her soul within. And I could hear the roses sing, a bluebird softly claps its wings. The sun seemed brighter than it's ever been, and now she's dancing in the wind with her true love again, where her heart has always been, where her heart has always been. I could hear the roses sing, a bluebird softly claps its wings. The sun seemed brighter than it's ever been, and now she's dancing in the wind with her true love again, where her heart has always been, where her heart has always been, where her heart has always been. The morning light was soft and low. The clouds had left an early snow.
Yes, there is truly going to be a great reunion in heaven, and going on right now as we speak. So would you join me as we close with the Lord's Prayer today? Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive them that trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever and ever. Amen. Again, I want to thank you all for being here, and please stay and enjoy lunch. So we're just out through those doors, down the hall, and across the building and back. God bless you all. Thank you.